Welcome to Chronicle Decode AI Radio, and today we are going to discuss the Hindu newspaper of 13 May 2026.
Right.
You can access today's discussion notes from description box and comment if you have any doubts.
Yeah, definitely do that.
So imagine building this state-of-the-art digital fortress, right? Like complete with biometric scanners, highly encrypted servers, hundreds of thousands of cameras.
There's a whole 9 yards.
Exactly. But then you intentionally leave this flimsy wooden back door wide open for literally anyone to just walk right through.
It sounds ridiculous when you put it like that.
It does. But today in our deep dive, we are examining how, 22 lakh aspiring doctors fell victim to that exact vulnerability. And honestly, how that single point of failure connects to this really strange paradox where banks are making historic profits while, well, you are paying way more for your groceries.
It really is just a profound web of events today. If we frame our entire conversation, we are fundamentally analyzing structural vulnerabilities here. Whether we are discussing an analog exam hall or, a drought-prone agricultural block or even a cargo ship navigating a literal war zone, we're seeing systems stretch to their absolute limits.
Yeah, and it's forcing a complete rethink of how we actually mitigate risks.
Exactly.
And there is honestly no greater immediate risk for millions of families listening right now than what just happened with the National Testing Agency. The NTA dropped a staggering bombshell. The May 3rd NEET U exam is officially canceled.
Yeah, it's massive.
We are talking about the singular gateway exam for undergraduate medical programs in India. And the culprit is a confirmed paper leak.
The specifics emerging from the investigation are, they're honestly alarming. Authorities actually traced a handwritten guest paper, right? And it was circulating widely on the messaging app Telegram.
Oh, wow. Telegram again.
Right, and it originated specifically out of Sakar, Rajasthan. And this wasn't just, a lucky set of predictions. A severe proportion of those circulated questions matched the actual physical exam paper word for word.
That is just nuts. And the scale of the response really tells you how serious this is. The NTA had to block 120 separate Telegram channels just to stop the bleeding, basically.
Yeah, and now the CBI has stepped in. They're utilizing the Prevention of Corruption Act.
Which is a major escalation.
Absolutely. And we are already seeing cross-state arrests. Like, there was a suspect apprehended in Nashik by the Maharashtra police, and that was based purely on leads coming out of Rajasthan.
Right. And the NTA's Director General, Abhishek Singh, he's promising a retest in 7 to 10 days with zero new fees. He's citing the zero error, zero tolerance policy. But I really have to challenge this entire premise.
Please do.
Well, so the government's stance is that canceling the exam was, the only way to protect the system's integrity. And yes, the NTA claims they have, 1.5 lakh CCTVs monitoring strong rooms on exam day?
Yeah, that's the official number.
But how are we still relying on the physical transport of a paper document in the back of a truck? It feels entirely contradictory. We have this massive digital security apparatus guarding a totally outdated analog process.
That is precisely the wooden back door you mentioned earlier.
Right.
The anti-cheating technology at the testing center itself might be cutting edge. But the fundamental architecture of a pen and paper exam, it necessitates physical printing presses.
Yeah,
right?
And trucks.
Exactly. Logistical distribution networks, temporary storage facilities, manual transport. Every single one of those physical handoffs is a human vulnerability.
And naturally, the political arena is just exploding over this. You have Rahul Gandhi calling it a crime against youth. Arvind Kejriwal is out there demanding street protests. And Ashok Gehlot is criticizing the delayed FIRs.
It's a firestorm.
But synthesizing all this political noise, keeping it impartial, it seems they are all tapping into the exact same nerve here. It's the deepest fear of the middle class, It is the fear that the system is fundamentally rigged against merit.
Exactly. To understand why an exam leak triggers such an overwhelming societal response, you really have to examine the underlying economic reality these students are facing right now.
The stakes are just so high.
They are. And the newly released Periodic Labor Force Survey, or PLFS data for 2025, illustrates this perfectly. So while the overall labor force participation rate is somewhat stable, sitting at 44.9%.
Okay.
The youth unemployment rate, so those aged 15 to 29, is sitting at 9.9%.
Wow. Wait, so that is
That is 3 times higher than the national average of 3.1%.
3 times, that's rough. And when you break those numbers down by demographic, the reality gets even sharper, right? Like educated unemployment, meaning individuals with secondary schooling or higher, is at 6.5%.
Yeah.
So playing by the rules, studying hard, and getting a degree does not actually guarantee you a paycheck anymore.
Not at all.
But the statistic that really stopped me in my tracks was for urban young women. Their unemployment rate is an astonishing 18.9%. It's staggering.
Nearly 1 in 5 young women in cities actively seeking employment simply cannot find it.
Yeah, and that specific demographic highlights a really complex societal gap because rural women actually show a higher participation rate at 34.6%.
Oh, really? Why the difference?
Well, over 70% of that is self-employment, which, typically translates to unpaid household enterprise or subsistence agriculture. It's not formal sector work.
Ah, I see.
Right. But in urban centers, women are seeking formal salaried roles, and there is a severe mismatch between the degrees they hold and the specific skills the modern job market actually demands. Plus, there are still lingering structural barriers in the workplace.
So when educated unemployment is double the national average, an exam like NEET, it ceases to be just a test.
Right.
For those 22 lakh students, it is a lifeboat. It represents one of the very few remaining trusted pathways to formal, secure, respected employment. So when that lifeboat is compromised by some random telegram leak, the resulting panic is totally justified. It is a total pressure cooker. And that economic anxiety, it doesn't just vanish when someone actually secures a job. It just shifts form.
Oh, absolutely.
Which actually brings us to a really fascinating macroeconomic paradox that's affecting literally everyone listening right now.
Yes, the cost of simply existing. Retail inflation just hit a 13-month high of 3.5% in April 2026.
Yeah, you feel it everywhere.
You really do. And the primary driver here is food inflation, which has climbed to 4.2% alongside the rising cost of dining out. Interestingly, though, transport inflation actually dipped into the negative, minus 0.01%.
Which is a small relief, I guess.
A small one. But your overall grocery bill is undoubtedly heavier. Yet, simultaneously, public sector banks have just reported an all-time high net profit of 1.98 lakh crore rupees for the fiscal year.
That number is just massive.
It is. Their aggregate business has reached an astronomical 283.3 lakh crore rupees.
And this is their 4th consecutive year of profitability, by the way.
So this is where I really need you to connect the dots for us. How does a listener reconcile this? The banks are flush with cash, boasting historic profits, but the average citizen is feeling the pinch in the vegetable aisle. What is the missing link separating these two realities?
It's a really vital distinction to make. The record profits of the PSBs, they are not the result of gouging consumers.
Okay.
They are actually the result of a decade-long structural cleanup. The banking sector has finally cleared out those toxic non-performing assets from the 2010s. So their balance sheets are clean, asset quality is improved, and credit expansion is healthy. It's just a sign of systemic financial recovery.
Got it.
The inflation you feel at the grocery store, however, that is purely a supply-side issue. And in India, the ultimate governor of the food supply is the weather.
Which brings us to this incredible leap in predictive technology, because with an El Nino threatening to weaken the upcoming monsoon, the India Meteorological Department has introduced this groundbreaking AI-blended forecasting system.
It's really cool stuff.
Historically, we relied on district-level forecasts, which, frankly, are just too broad to be actionable for an individual farmer. But now, the IMD is rolling out hyperlocal block-level forecasts covering about 3,200 blocks across 15 states.
Yeah, and the granularity they are achieving is honestly remarkable. Take the Mithuna model that's currently deployed in Uttar Pradesh. They have downscaled the forecasting resolution to an incredibly precise 1 kilometer radius.
Wait, 1 kilometer?
1 kilometer.
Right.
And it's valid for 10 days.
I just want to make sure you, the listener, understand the practical application of this, because this is not just meteorological trivia for weather nerds.
Definitely not.
If a farmer knows with high certainty which specific week or even which day the rain will hit their exact 1 kilometer plot of land, they can perfectly time their sowing.
Exactly. The seeds don't wash away in unexpected floods.
Right. And they don't wither in unpredicted dry spells.
Right.
So yields stabilize, the agricultural supply chain remains robust, and consequently your grocery bill stops climbing.
Precisely. By synthesizing like nearly a century of historical data with advanced artificial intelligence and global climate models, the state is effectively building a technological shield over our domestic agricultural output.
It's moving from passive observation to active risk mitigation.
Yes. But protecting domestic crops is really only half the battle because we don't exist in a vacuum.
Oh, for sure. We rely on a deeply interconnected global supply chain, which means navigating the intense friction of international trade. And right now, India is in the midst of a highly concentrated burst of trade diplomacy.
Really are. However, Chief Economic Advisor Anantha Nageswaran recently issued a very candid warning regarding these efforts.
What did he say?
Well, while agreements like the upcoming India-Oman Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is scheduled for June 1st, by the way, while that represents progress, there is significant friction elsewhere.
Right, like with the Chile Free Trade Agreement.
Exactly.
And the CEA's warning was specifically about the gap between theory and practice, wasn't it?
Yeah, he pointed out this substantial chasm between the market access promised on paper by these FTAs and the reality of what current domestic regulations actually permit.
Oh, I see.
So an FTA might open a door internationally, but if domestic compliance is too convoluted, businesses simply cannot walk through it.
That makes sense. But honestly, regulatory friction feels almost trivial when you consider the physical threats to trade right now.
Yeah, the geopolitical side is terrifying.
Because even the most flawlessly negotiated trade agreement is utterly useless if the physical cargo ships cannot safely navigate the ocean. And the escalating conflict in West Asia between Iran and Israel is making the waters incredibly dangerous.
It's a massive choke point.
We just recently saw Kuwait accuse an Iranian Revolutionary Guard team of attempting an attack on Boubian Island.
And the economic fallout from this geopolitical instability, it is immediate and severe.
Yeah.
Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri noted that while India currently holds a comfortable 60-day strategic reserve of crude oil, the domestic oil marketing companies are bleeding heavy losses right now.
Because they're absorbing the shock, right?
Exactly. They've been absorbing the global price shocks to keep retail fuel prices stable for consumers. But if this conflict is prolonged, those costs are inevitably going to be passed on to you, the domestic consumer.
And the toll isn't just measured in barrels of oil either. It is measured in human livelihoods. Just look at Sri Lanka's current situation.
Oh, that's a really good point.
They have over 3.1 lakh migrant workers stationed across West Asia, and those individuals send back roughly $8 billion in remittances annually.
$8 billion.
Yeah, that capital is the absolute lifeblood keeping the Sri Lankan economy afloat after their recent default. So if the region destabilizes further, the economic shockwave will be devastating.
And this extreme volatility, this is exactly why India is implementing unprecedented financial armor for its maritime trade. We really need to talk about the Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool, or the BMIP.
Yeah, this mechanism fascinates me. Explain how global maritime insurance typically works and why this domestic pool is so critical right now.
Okay, so think of a modern commercial cargo ship as a floating city worth billions of dollars.
Right.
They operate relying on specialized global insurers who are very often based in London. But when a region becomes an active war zone, those global insurers assess the risk as too high, and they'll abruptly pull their coverage, or they spike the premiums to a level that makes the voyage financially ruinous.
And without insurance, the ship owner will not risk the vessel.
Exactly. And trade freezes instantly.
So a multi-billion-dollar supply chain can be halted just by a risk assessment made in some office thousands of miles away.
Exactly. So to prevent Indian trade from being paralyzed by these global panic responses, the government established the BMIP and is backed by a 12,980 crore rupee sovereign guarantee.
Wow.
It serves as a contingent backstop of last resort. If global insurers pull out, this domestic pool activates to cover the risks to the hull, the machinery, and the cargo.
Ensuring Indian vessels have the legal and financial coverage required to just keep sailing.
Right. It's basically an override switch for our supply chains.
But financial shields like the BMIP only pay out after a disaster has already happened. To prevent the disaster from occurring in the first place, you need physical deterrence.
Yes.
Which explains why Defense Minister Rajnath Singh is currently undertaking a highly strategic trip to Vietnam and South Korea.
The Vietnam leg is particularly notable here. A central focus of these high-level discussions is the advanced negotiation for a 5,800 crore rupee deal to export the BrahMos cruise missile system to Vietnam.
I really have to ask about the strategy here. Exporting advanced cruise missiles to a nation directly bordering the heavily contested South China Sea, that feels like a very pointed message.
It is.
Are we essentially establishing a geopolitical tripwire to make Beijing think twice about their maritime expansion?
It is definitely a calculated projection of power. By arming nations that have overlapping territorial disputes with China, India is actively transitioning into the role of a regional security provider.
That's a big shift.
It is. It's a tangible counterweight in a highly volatile region. It signals that India will protect its strategic interests far beyond its immediate borders.
And you can see these shifting global fault lines reflected in diplomatic forms as well, right? I mean, the upcoming BRICS foreign ministers meeting in New Delhi, which is chaired by S. Jaishankar, it has a glaring omission on its guest list.
Oh, yes, it does.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is completely skipping the May 14th to 15th summit.
And the official rationale provided by Beijing cites scheduling conflicts.
Right, quote-unquote scheduling conflicts, because he is remaining in Beijing to host U.S. President Donald Trump, who is visiting during that exact window.
Yeah, the timing is no accident.
Consider the diplomatic chess being played here. China is actively choosing to prioritize a bilateral engagement with the United States over a multilateral BRICS meeting hosted by India.
It's a very clear indicator of where Beijing believes its leverage is best applied. It highlights a growing reality. While multilateral forums like BRICS exist to unify emerging economies, the individual bilateral relationships of its most powerful members frequently supersede the collective agenda.
Right.
And when bilateral interests trump multilateral cooperation, global supply chains restructure. And that unpredictability, well, it eventually trickles down to the cost of goods for the everyday listener.
It's all about shifting alliances. And speaking of the fragility of alliances, let's transition from international geopolitics back to our domestic reality, specifically this intense political theater unfolding in Tamil Nadu.
Oh, man. The State Assembly is bracing for an incredibly consequential floor test for Chief Minister C. Joseph Vijay and his party, the TVK.
Yeah.
In the lead up to this trust vote, the political landscape has fractured dramatically.
We are seeing an absolute ideological earthquake. I mean, rebel leaders from the AIADMK, specifically Velamani and Shanmugam, have shocked the state by pledging their support to Vijay's TVK.
It's unprecedented.
For those unfamiliar with the history, the AIADMK has deep traditional roots. And allying with a newer rival like the TVK is seen by many as a monumental betrayal of their core base.
The internal rift is severe. Edapadi K. Palaniswamy, the AIADMK General Secretary, maintains the loyalty of 26 MLAs, and he has explicitly declared his faction will vote against the confidence motion.
So how are the rebels justifying it?
Well, the rebel faction justifies their defection by claiming that aligning with their traditional historical rivals would lead to the total erasure of their party identity. So that prompted their pivot to the TVK instead.
Interesting.
It's a stark demonstration of how fluid local state politics can be. Deeply entrenched loyalties can just dissolve overnight when political survival is on the line.
It proves that human systems, whether we're talking about political alliances or international treaties, are inherently unpredictable. But our final story today serves as a pretty somber reminder that nature operates entirely by its own ancient, uncontrollable rules.
Yeah, the news emerging from Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh is really tragic. 4 cheetah cubs have been killed in what authorities suspect was a leopard attack.
The poignancy here is just profound. These were not just any cubs.
No.
They were the very first to be born in the open forest under the 2022 Project Cheetah Reintroduction Program. All the previous births had occurred safely within protected, fenced enclosures.
Right.
But the very moment they stepped into the true wild, the harsh reality of the ecosystem asserted itself.
It really illustrates the absolute limits of human management.
Mm-hmm.
We can execute this brilliant logistical feat, right? Intercontinentally relocating a species.
Yeah, massive coordination.
But managing their coexistence in the wild, integrating them into an established hierarchy with native apex predators like leopards, that requires an ecological balance that we simply cannot engineer. We can mitigate the risks, but the wild remains wild.
It truly puts our entire conversation today into perspective. I mean, we have covered a vast spectrum of human endeavor today.
We really have.
We started with the intense vulnerability of our youth navigating canceled NEET exams, due to analog vulnerabilities and facing a really daunting job market. From there, we examined the complex systems India is constructing to build resilience. We explored the IMD utilizing artificial intelligence down to a single square kilometer to stabilize our food supply against inflation.
Right, the macro projections.
Yeah. We analyzed the 12,980 crore sovereign guarantee protecting our maritime trade routes and the strategic export of BrahMos missiles to secure our regional influence.
And, the through line connecting all these seemingly disparate events is the constant evolving attempt to mitigate risk.
Exactly.
Whether a government is trying to shield its citizens from macroeconomic inflation or, navigate the fluid alliances of a state assembly floor test or even protect a fragile reintroduced species, we are always building systems to manage unpredictability.
Which brings me to a final thought I want you to consider. Today, we discussed the IMD utilizing advanced AI and supercomputers to predict rainfall down to a single square kilometer. We examined massive sovereign financial pools tracking maritime war risks in real time.
Amazing technology.
Right. But if we possess the technological capability to achieve all of that, why is the academic fate of 22 lakh aspiring doctors still dependent on the physical transportation of a vulnerable piece of paper in the back of a truck? Until we learn to digitize and secure our systems of trust as effectively as we have digitized our weather systems, are we truly ready for the future? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.